Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing good. Okay, so this is the major arcana tarot meaning lesson for the Knight of Wands. And okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and explain um, a little bit about him. So the Knight of Wands, a couple of keyword meanings is a journey and travel and change of residence. Usually he comes up when those type of events take place, and as I've said again, you're probably tired of hearing it, but depending on where he is positioned in the spread, that can tell you what that is trying to say about a move or a journey. Like if it was in the past, it might mean that there was a move in the past or a travel or journey of some type. It could even just be in the realm of thought, so don't just limit it to an actual literal move. It could be the thought of moving, that you had in the past or somebody had in the past, um, or and if it's like in the if it's in the goals position in a reading, like usually like when like when you do a Celtic cross reading and you have the goals position, usually it's like at the top. That could mean like a wish to move. Um, okay, so that's some of the things that the Knight of Wands can mean. And and okay, so there's another aspect to the Knight of Wands. Okay, he can also stand for, now this is typically a male because it's a knight, but not always. I don't typically limit myself to just say it's a man or a woman, because of the gender of the card, but usually it is a male. Um, but it usually means that he is, they jokingly call him the player card, because he's not the committing type. He does not commit. He's very flighty. um I guess one way to describe him would be kind of distant in a way, but not to be not like a serious type of distant, like when some people are distant but they're just really serious people, but because he can't give his um sole attention to any one thing for long. I also do, in my readings I do timing, and usually I tend to associate Knight of Wands with the sign of Gemini, because um, of the qualities of being very, very social and not being able to just focus on one thing at once, that dynamic that Geminis have. Um, so, I don't usually like to like to incorporate astrology, but it is fairly obvious that astrology does play a significant role in tarot. Um, so that's just something I wanted to put out there. But yeah, so he's very sociable and very very superficial also, because he's like basically I mean, just think of him as like the guy that drives a slick car and he doesn't like to commit to anybody. So if you, let's say in a love reading, right, if you were to see the Knight of Wands, well, you might want to be a little careful about not falling for this guy, because he could be a heartbreaker. He'll have a good time with you, and treat you good when on the first date, but then that's it. He goes on to his next conquest. and it even kind of looks a little bit like the concept because he's galloping on the horse, so it's like he's not, you know what I mean? Like he's galloping, so he's basically like leaving. Um, he can be very risky too. His actions are very risky. That's another aspect to the Knight of Wands. He can be very foolhardy. He's a daredevil, and he can also be very passionate, and kind of, if I were to compare him to any other knight as far as, who is he the opposite of? I would say he's the opposite of the Knight of Pentacles, pretty much in every way. Um, they all sort of, have their own redeeming qualities, but I would say he's fairly different from the Knight of Pentacles because the Knight of Pentacles is very, he's very stubborn and committed. He works very hard for every little gain, but he's kind of like the Knight of Wands is like the risk taker. Um, so if you want to figure out, I know this is really random, but there's certain things that people like to know in tarot, like they'll ask a really specific question, and as a reader myself, I get asked some questions that I wouldn't think to be asked, like um you know y- you get asked something maybe about if someone's like a gambler or something. You might get asked, is so and so a gambler? Well, if you see the Knight of Wands, I mean, it's pretty clear. That would be a red flag. That could be a red flag that they have that, they possess that personality. They are prone to having a gambling addiction, because it's risky. And I'm trying to think of something else I could add to that. You can also think of people that play the stock market, anything that's pretty much about risks. So, there's also the other aspect. People like to, if they want to describe somebody's physical looks, I don't normally do it, but occasionally if I get asked in a reading, I do. Like for instance, if somebody wants to know what their next boyfriend will look like, well, if that's all they want to know and they don't want to know the personality, like if they're not asking like his personality and they just want to know about his looks, chances are he's probably got like light hair and light eyes and fair skin, good looking, um, probably got the Caucasian look going. And kind of like, like the Page of Wands. Usually wands are pretty fair. Red hair, possibly blonde. Um, so that's that's what I would say to somebody if they asked. And so you have to be careful whenever you interpret. Whenever you interpret the cards, always remember what it was that you asked. Because, for instance, if you're asking about the guy's physical appearance, um, then I would advise not to think that this means he's a risk taker because it wasn't asked. So always pay attention to that, what you asked, because every on top of having like reversed and upright meanings, um, there's the other angle where even if it's in an upright position, it could still mean good or bad because of what you ask, so always be careful in that respect. So tarot reading is very systematic, as you know, but I read it intuitively as well. Any of you who've had readings from me know that I am very intuitive, and use that above all else. And so yeah, that's what I would say for the love category for the Knight of Wands. I also say, yeah, so it's not something that you would assume you can have a commitment from. And it could be a woman too, like if you're a guy and you find some woman really irresistible, and you find that she just wanted to have a good time, you were just a conquest to her. That is possible. It's not limited to any one sex. But okay, so another thing, I've been told I'm very thorough in my reading, so I'm gonna be very thorough today too. So I'm gonna say this that if you were to ask in a reading about, and this is again about love, if you were to say, oh, what kind of, if you were in a relationship and you already know for sure the person you're asking about is committed, but you want to know what to look forward to, for instance, you have to really pay attention to the kind of question you ask. And let's say you get the Knight of Wands, right? Well, that wouldn't necessarily mean that the person you're with is gonna leave you, because obviously you can't just, if you know somebody, you know somebody, um, don't just assume that suddenly they're gonna change their character and their personality on account of one card in the tarot deck. It's probably saying that there's gonna be some traveling ahead, when couples travel and they see the world together and they have adventures and stuff. So really think about how you ask your questions. So, um, tarot reading is not, meant to be taken, you know, um, very sloppily. It is it's an art, but it's also very, um, you have to be very careful with the words you use. Like if you're saying specifically, if you ask what is the forecast of your relationship, or with somebody, and you like, let's say if you're married, right? And you're completely committed, and you know who you're with. You've been with them for a long time. They're pretty reliable. They've proven their worth. And if you are looking forward to something and you see this, well, this is a good card, I mean, I don't have any problem seeing this in a reading. That would be very happy for my client. I would say, oh, you guys have some traveling ahead. So you got to look at it like that. Okay, so other than that, there's some negative qualities that come with the Knight of Wands. This can also bode, depending on what you know about your situation. It could be warning you about taking risks, having a bad temper. Somebody could have a bad temper because it's a very fiery card. Um, and so yeah, that's what I feel with that's the connection I feel with the Knight of Wands. Now let's move on to the work meaning. If you were to see the Knight of Wands in a work related reading, or career, anything like that, I would see this as, it's a positive card, but you got to apply it to how you would, you got to apply it to the situation. So work, somebody who can be very, risky, in what they do. Maybe the job is about, the stock market, but that's too limiting. So if you work and you see this, it could be saying that you are going to maybe take a business vacation. You have to really look at what you're asking. Um, it could be indicating that, and depending on what cards, it's more likely to mean travel. Like if you see the Six of Swords next to it, or say the Chariot, those are all like travel related cards. So if you see that next to the Knight of Wands, that would mean travel most likely. And so you also got, if you have like an office job and you pretty much are set and you don't go anywhere, I would say this is a time where you have to look forward to something a little different, like out of the routine. Depending on if you're doing a daily reading or if you want to know what's to come, in the near future, this is probably saying that there's going to be something more exciting coming in, as far as work, and you want a little bit of excitement maybe in your career. Um, so this doesn't exactly, it doesn't really, I don't feel it has any place in a type of job that is more like office type. It seems more like it's associated with, traveling and, going around from place to place. Sometimes, like I think of celebrities, that travel around and go on, touring and stuff like that. it's a very glamorous card, you know, shallow. That's one thing that's associated with Knight of Wands. So think of those things. So okay, now let me go ahead and say a little bit about if you want to know about finances. Well, we were just talking about risky behavior. So I would say if depending on what you see, this card alone on its own doesn't mean anything in terms of financial success. I would not know what to tell a client if I were to see the Knight of Wands as far as making money. I just wouldn't. I mean, I would say something like, you know, maybe you need to watch out, you know, what kind of risks you're taking, or maybe you need to take risks, but that's not very helpful, is it? So you have to look at, you know, any other cards surrounding it, or at least pull another card for a little more information, like what does that really mean? So if you pull out, let's say you pull like next to it the let's see, the Ten of Pentacles. Okay, that would basically say, okay, so if you pull that next to it, it's probably saying that you're going to take a risk and it's going to make you wealthy. You know, that happens all the time. People do stuff like that. You know, they're risk takers, and they that's their mindset. You know, so it could be encouraging you to take a risk or to not take one, depending on what you see. If you see something else, you know, something a little more foreboding, like, let me try to find it. Something else. Like the Five of Pentacles, unfortunately, that would mean probably the risk you're taking is, you know, is going to be very unfortunate, and you are told not to, you know. So anyways, you get the picture, I hope. So anyhow, that's, you know, that's what I feel with the, you know, the Knight of Wands. It's a very risk, you know, associate card. It's, you know, you got to put that into consideration. Depending on personality traits, it could mean somebody who's, you know, really good looking but not ready to commit, you know, things like that. So it's a very what do you call it, it's a very flighty vibration to this card. You know, it's very flighty. It's hard to hold, you know, pin down. So, you know, so okay, so that's what my meaning for the Knight of Wands is. Hope you guys learned a little bit, and I hope it helped, and I hope you enjoy the video, and look forward and stay tuned to my next video, which is the Queen of Wands. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.